This is Darnell Diesel Moon, the upset artist, the boogeyman, however y'all want to put it. And I'm here to give a shout out to my guys. I love listening to John, Charles, and Frank on Real Talk Boxing.
We're recording live from the New York Casino, so Charles knows where the hell I'm at. We are talking about real boxing talk. We're still going to keep Darnell Boone's bumper up there, so we're just going to change the name of the show for Darnell. Let's do it that way. Welcome, gentlemen. Welcome, folks. Here's where we're at. We are at the tail end of February. Some important days for various different reasons coming up or on this day, personal and professional. But let's take a look at what we've got coming on here. And in no particular order here, date-wise, because there's nothing that's really happening imminently, other than Josh Taylor starting today, or this weekend, I'm sorry. And as John said off the air, well, he's a 14-1 underdog. Well, favorite, I'm sorry. So I look at it this way. The way we've been seeing things lately, that may be something to look at, because favorites haven't been faring too well, or at least they've been getting challenged. And that's something we've taken a look at the last few shows of who comes out of where and who knows what. So let's start with that one. John, what do you think of the possibility?
Well, Taylor's got everything in his corner. He's fighting at home. Mm-hmm. He's got the big momentum. The only thing that could happen that you're talking about, I think, is Catterall. I seen him on a fight once. He's pretty good. Is that he's looking past Jack Catterall and he's looking at Terrence Crawford or somebody like that next.
Right.
And that's a possibility, and that happens in boxing, where I'm focused. No, you're not focused, and then the challenger could lift his game up. That's also a possibility that sometimes happens. But see, Taylor's got all the advantages because he's been in the big fights. He's been there. Catterall has not. He doesn't even have a name really on his record that you can point at and go, oh, yeah, he beat him. No. But he's been very patient. He's been the number one guy for 3 years. He took some side money to let the unification fight go down.
Right.
So he's got a lot to prove because a lot of people have been saying, and even me, I wrote an article that said, Jack who? That one very nice. But, what you do. So, and then I gave him his props. So it's one of those, and yeah, that's the thing about sports is you think, we've said this a million times, you think you've got it figured out, you think everything looks good. The one hope that Jack has is that perhaps Taylor is a feisty guy, as you know, if you've ever seen him fight. He can box really well, but he likes to fight. He likes to mix it up. So maybe he'll get caught. I know Regis Prograis had him buzzed in the 12th round, and they all once said he wasn't hurt. He was hurt. And if that fight had gone 15 rounds, the Rougarou might just have done it. So there's always a chance. That's why I always watch. And then every now and then you go, wow, it did happen. So there you go.
Here, right. Yeah. Now, we've got a fight coming up also this weekend, the WBO Cruiserweight title fight. Now, this proves the point of what we've been talking about over the course of the last year or so, even longer than that. Who knew this fight was going on, and who knows who's fighting? Lawrence Okolie against Mikhail Cieslak, or however you want to pronounce it. Charles, any clue?
I mean,
be honest.
I knew what was going on, but I mean, it's just the factor that the class is not featured. I mean, nobody has stood out. I mean, we mentioned a couple names before in the previous history, but unless the guy's making the jump from that area to another weight,
right,
it's not really there. I mean, when you even look at what Canelo has the opportunity to, he's trying to jump up to light heavy or whatever, but I don't think you're going to see him saying, I really want to go up to cruiserweight and knock somebody out unless it's just available. But it has not been a division that people really have got excited about. Even the greatest champions, you don't go, oh man, that dude might be one of the greatest of all times. I mean, maybe that's just my ignorance, but I don't think it's like that. So it hasn't changed much in the years since I became an older gentleman.
Well, it became anyway. Okay, let's look at this realistically. We won't spend a lot of time on it because no one ever does. But this is a division where if you moved up from light heavy and you're going to heavyweight, you make a pit stop and people pay attention to you. if you're moving down from heavyweight because you get tired of beat up by the big heavyweights and you want to move to light heavy, or you're whatever, you just morph to something, you end up at cruiserweight. But it doesn't appear as if anyone says, hey, I was 18 years old or 12 years old or whatever. My dream was to become cruiserweight champion of the world. I don't think anyone has ever said that. It's like, oh man, I'm a cruiserweight. Well, yeah, I'll get it. Yeah. And I as we talk about more weight classes we don't need, is this one of those bridge weight classes we can say, why do we have this? Because when we're talking the bridger weight class as well, wouldn't you just combine these and move it on? Again, this is what we're looking at, saying too many weight classes, too many belts. But John, is there a point to this?
Cruiserweight's been around a long time. I remember when Evander Holyfield was a cruiserweight, so that's
right.
How long it's been. And really, the two famous that pop in your head are Holyfield and then Usyk. You know, they used it as a springboard, and you knew where Holyfield was going. And the same thing, Usyk has a lot in common with Holyfield, that he's smaller than all these guys, and especially now, a lot smaller. But it looks just like your little brother, and you step on it on your way up. You know, that's basically you're there for a while and you just move up, right? So they could eliminate it. I don't even think anybody would notice. But then what do you do with the guys that weigh like 200 pounds? What do you do with those guys? You're going to put them in the ring against guys that weigh 280, 290? You know, they debated the idea of maybe having a weight limit with the heavyweights. They've never had a weight limit with the heavyweights, and make it 250. But then a guy like Fury and Joshua and those guys, they barely can make 250. Deontay Wilder easily, but so, okay, we'll make it 280. But then if a guy weighs like Joe Louis weighed 199 for years, one of the greatest heavyweights ever. Muhammad Ali weighed in the 220s only when he got older, but when he was in his prime, 210.
Right.
Well, Frazier weighed right around the same, 205 when they fought the fight of the century. So what happens to those guys? You really going to make him fight a guy where he's got to give up 75, 80 pounds? Now, Jack Dempsey gave up almost 100 pounds and demolished Jess Willard, but
that was right. Well, okay, let's look at it this way. In the Olympics, which we all know how much everyone values Olympic boxing right now, in the Olympics, didn't we used to have the super heavyweight division?
Yes.
Do we still have it? I don't know. Have we had the Olympics in the last 12 years? I'm not really sure. But we did have, so maybe we add a super heavyweight. Maybe we make it, from cruiserweight to 245, 250, and then 255 and over, you've got to be super heavyweight.
So let me ask you this. So if I get this right, what is it? Light heavy is what, 175? Is that right?
Right.
Cruisers 190?
Correct.
Yeah.
190 to 215?
199 cruiserweight.
What is it?
199.
Okay. So my thing is, since you're right there and you know what heavyweight is, why not just bounce the weight up a cruiserweight?
Right.
At 199, right. Why make it 210 or whatever?
215, yeah, something like that, right?
Yeah. Why would you bounce it up? And then you go to heavyweight. Because that's the one thing when you right, Ken, like, well, you talk about the difference between you at 185 and you fighting a dude like, 80 pounds heavier than you or whatever the hell it is. Why not just boost the number of cruiserweight up? Cruiserweight goes from 190 to 215, 210. You want to keep moving up, that's what you get. Most guys that are heavyweights that want up each of the heavyweight is going to move up anyway. Plus two, if you did that, in my opinion, I think that it legitimizes the heavyweights now. Because we always talked about cats like Roy Jones Jr. picking the right dude, like John Ruiz sneaking the title because he was quicker than him. He had faster hands, he could run away from him. So to me, even though it's a little change and we're so used to having it the way we were, sometimes you need to make change. So you make change, and it also legitimizes the real heavyweights. So you really want to be a heavyweight, like, well, man, I'm 200 pounds, I can beat them dudes. Then you need to gain some damn weight and move up to the real heavyweights. And then I think you have I'd have more respect for it because now it's true heavyweight. And I also gain a little bit more respect for cruiserweight because what I was looking at before has now added pounds and is going to bring some additional quality fighters at a lighter weight.
Okay, so for those of you that are in charge of the WBA, WCB, WBC, WBO, IBF, IBQ, whatever. Mr. Farmer, he's got the answers because You apparently do not.
Yeah.
Is the way we're looking at it. Yeah, they don't. He do. Or something English related to that statement. Okay, now we're looking at a few other things. Now, I had something that I really didn't want to talk about, but it begs the question. Jean-Riel Casamayor has just been whatever you want to call it, however you want to put it. When we were talking about the Baseball Hall of Fame, or everyone was talking about the Baseball Hall of Fame a few months ago, who gets in, who doesn't get in, blah, 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 blah. Is there, and I'm not saying he's guilty or not guilty, but is there a responsibility as just a professional fighter in general, but as the world champion in particular, to be a little bit above board and stay clean of the law, John?
There used to be, when we were kids, probably, I mean, we all looked up to athletes. We thought they were heroes to us. Now, of course, we didn't know what was going on behind the scenes.
Right, that's the thing, right.
Heroism might have went down a few notches if we knew that, but it was a totally different time. Now, everything that's going on in your life is going to be reported, and I think the ones that take it real seriously will say that. I think it was Charles Barkley said, look, I'm not trying to be anybody's hero. Forget it. I'm not taking on that responsibility. And I think it's an individual thing. You say, okay, I'm gonna lead a good life. I'm gonna try to stay clean and everything. But you know, if you have that proclivity a little bit, and you have a little bit of the dark side going on, and you get caught, so it's an individual thing. I don't think anybody nowadays. Okay, that's not right. I don't think most athletes nowadays are that worried about it. Where maybe not years ago there was a little bit more of a conscious effort to try to be, you know, on the up and up about things, because the people that I admired as a kid, you know, Ernie Banks and Jerry West and Gale Sayers, Pistol Pete, I mean, they were all to a certain level. And then I found out later that Pistol Pete was doing drugs late in his career, you know, so I didn't know that then. But then they are human. We forget that. They are human. Look at Tiger Woods. He might not be human on the golf course, but he's very human off the golf course.
Right.
Then you got Jack Nicklaus, who's his equal in a lot of ways. He hasn't had any scandals. So different era, different time, different people. So it's a hard call. And I know what you're talking about. It's an allegation, and then you just have to decide on what do. Do you go on an allegation and say, no, you're not fighting based on an allegation, or do you do your own independent investigation and decide? And this guy, you know, Casamara, he's had a reputation for being kind of a crazy guy. Now, that doesn't mean he did what he's accused of. It's just that rep.
Right.
And it makes it hard. But no, Frank, I don't think most guys nowadays are really that concerned about that. I think they might try a little, but I don't think they're losing any sleep over it.
Okay, Charles, you want to weigh in on that?
Yeah, I mean, I think it really is the times, man. It really is. Because for one instance, you mentioned about guys in the past when we were coming up trying to be morally correct, and they wanted to make sure they didn't get too much out there. But a lot of it has to do with the media. The media, I mean, you think if that was the case, if the media was the way it was today, where everybody with a phone wanted to be a damn national correspondent, I mean, hell, John F. Kennedy would have been president. Let's keep that 100. A lot of people don't see that. Same thing with some things they found about Martin Luther King. So there's some stuff that was hidden, even though certain people knew about it, or the feds knew about it. They didn't say anything. But like I said, everybody now is trying to be a national correspondent. And some of the stuff too is the way the society looks at the rules of what they decide what's good, what's bad. Everybody has a dark side. They have some things they're doing. As John mentioned, it may not come to light. But I mean, for as much as we talk about athletes and entertainers doing certain things, you gotta realize, what is it? Elvis Presley married a teenage girl. You know what I'm saying? Back in the day, just so much going on that it just, back then, nobody said anything. And I knew they knew. They knew what was going on. I mean, it wasn't no secret. But Jerry Lee Lewis, I could throw all kind of legendary names out there. But it's just to the point of, what does society deem to be acceptable? So with athletes and these entertainers, with them being said, they're like, okay, I'm a little sketchy. So anything you do, from the point of Jalen Rose hanging out playing video games in a crack house, and everybody, oh my God, what are you doing? And he's like, well, this is my neighborhood. These are my guys. This is what I do. This is how I live. So society has changed dramatically, and I think athletes have tried to change, but I think that now you're just seeing that most want to do the right thing, but unfortunately, I mean, I think we got to look at them for, as John mentioned, for being human, because people love Tiger Woods, but Tiger Woods, you know, was in a position where he was really set up to fail. And just in my opinion, with that point where everybody talking about how great he was and how he was with all these women, I'm like, but you saw what the example his dad set for him?
Right.
Nobody talks about that.
Right,
so,
exactly.
But society jumps on it. So with all that being said, we talking about boxing. All that being said, it just shows you that society in today's world, along with the national correspondence, can really make something maybe that may not be as bad look crazy. But then the bad things come out. It's just a mix. It's a mixed bag, man. It's mixed full of all kind of crazy nuts. So it really depends on what society says now. But I do think most athletes are trying to do the right thing, realizing that I'm on the edge. If somebody finds something out, what are they gonna say?
Well, and you mentioned something that I think hits home, and I'm going to go back a ways. It doesn't seem like a ways to me, but it is, and I'm here in Vegas. If you remember the Sweet Pea Lloyd Daniels situation here in Las Vegas at UNLV, and basically what they said was, we're going to turn you into something completely different by tomorrow. This is the life you've lived. This is how you've been raised. This is how you've gone about your business. But we're going to give you a chance to become a college basketball player. And now everything that you know that was okay is no longer okay. What are you going to do? Well, I can't go. No, you can't do. You can't do that. You can't say it. Well, and is it possible to do that? I don't think so. I mean, and when there's no understanding on our end, and as John said, Casimir has been, shown this kind of lifestyle for a while. Does that mean he can't be champion of the world? I don't know. It's just, like Charles said, we overexpose things, and it's all there it is. Someone's got a camera in their face all the time. Not condoning what he's done or what he's accused of doing,
right,
but understanding that if this is your way of doing things, and suddenly you are thrust in a world where it's not your way of doing things, how would you react? What would you do? There's the question. Now, as they say, the segue is now back to boxing. But the idea here is there are title fights coming up, and we'll get to a few of the big things later. But let me run down a few things here that I've just been paying attention to in the next month or two that are actually belts. And I hate to keep harping on this, but I think it's kind of interesting that when we keep saying we need a big fight, that there are actually big fights, or what should be big fights out there. I shouldn't say big fights, but title fights. And I know we've gone over and over again, how important is a title, but we keep talking about titles, so they got to be somewhat important to us, right? So let's look at a couple things to see what you think and what you actually feel is coming up. So the WBA regular featherweight title. Now, I don't know what that actually means, but it's a March 12th in Nottingham, England versus Lee Wood and versus Michael Conlon. We still figured out what regular and not regular and super means. I still haven't figured that out. That bugs me. I just don't know why. In Japan, the WBC junior flyweight title on March 19th. Masashimi Yabuku versus Kenshiro Taraji. Okay, really? That's a fight? In Dubai, March 19th. IBF flyweight title. Sonny Edwards versus Muhammad Wasim. That's a title fight. Okay. Coming up March 26th, Kiko Martinez versus Josh Warrington for Martinez's IBF featherweight title. Let's see if Josh Warrington can get it back. That's a title fight. Now, in all of that, coming up within the next month or 2 months, how many of those people do we know about? And I'm missing one, but I'll get past that because their names I can't even pronounce. The WBC strawweight title for CP Freshmart against Wengthing Menyathan or whoever. I'm sorry. When we start getting to this point, and we want titles to be important. And I know there's some of these, as we talk about cruiserweight, some of these more, for lack of a better way of putting it, obscure belts, weight classes. But as people who know boxing, should we be able to look and say, there's an IBF title, and like, okay, I can do the research to figure out who the hell it is. Is it a problem? Is it just me? Is it a problem? Is it something that it's just the way it is and live with it, John?
Well, you mentioned Michael Conlon, the WBA regular title, you said, right? Now,
right.
Supposedly the WBA has said that they're getting rid of all that regular title and title in rest or
emeritus and silver and all this crap, right?
WBC, I blame them for a lot of this. My friend Bill Kaplan would get mad at me, but I'm sorry, Bill. You know, Mauricio Suleiman and his daddy, I mean, they've done some good things, but they want to give you a title the minute you walk into the room. And that cheapens it for everybody else. And that's what goes on. The WBA was kind of following them. The WBA was the ones who created that bogus heavyweight tournament in 1967 when Muhammad Ali was basically suspended or whatever he was because of his, because he refused to go to Vietnam. And they created this. Now, the flip side of that was a number of heavyweights who weren't getting noticed got noticed. That was good, but the WBA is kind of like, to me, is somebody they're an opportunist. They try to figure out a way to single themselves out. Now, they took so much guff last year for their notorious, or not the wrong word, numerous titles that they said, okay, that's it, we're eliminating that. So I wonder if that is any kind of a title, because Michael Conlon hasn't had very many fights. He's just very popular. So does that mean that the minute there's a point of what I'm saying here, Frank. So is that how it is in a lot of these promoters? Look, he's really popular, so we need to have a title with him. And again, that makes it all stupid, lack of a better word. I feel bad for the guys who have to work their way up. What about them? So the WBA is supposedly cleaning up their act. If this is true, that this is for some bogus WBA regular title, then they're just talking like, oh yeah,
right.
It doesn't mean anything. And people have been complaining like us about this for years. And does it change? No. Because they tie titles to money, to exposure, the promoters, and that's what they want. And they want the announcers to always say, undefeated WBC. They think that brings all this more respect. And really, the thing is, it's working the other way. If you really know about boxing, you go, what, him? He's like ranked 15th. How did he get a title? So you just shake your head and roll your eyes. So they've done it to themselves. So I don't feel sympathetic for them. I just feel bad for the fans because the fans are sick of it.
Well, now, before we go any further, if I'm not mistaken, Charles, you own the WBC Interim Junior Varsity Welterweight Championship, don't you? So, yeah, I thought I saw that. Yeah,
I'll be defending it in June
against Glass Joe, right? Now, but seriously though, when we look now, I think for a while there we were looking, and maybe some people still do. They looked at the ring rankings as Ring Magazine as this is it. I don't know if people still do that anymore. I'm not sure. But again, you still have to. Do we have to have a champion? Do we have to have a belt? Do we have to have this thing? I don't know, Charles. What do you think? I'm trying to wrap my head around why we don't know about some things. We know about some things, and then the big fight we get may not even be for a belt. But just run with this for a second. I'm just trying to think.
Well, I think a lot of it, of course, like anything else, is tied to money, right? So you can say titles and whatever. You mentioned a lot of people. You mentioned about 5 fights. You mentioned about maybe 2 people that a lot of people would know even think anything about. But I think you can put a title out there. You can say, yeah, this is our title, because each organization, depending on the division, once they have their own title, so they can kind of say, well, even if you don't know who this is, we now have, such and such as part of our stable, and we have this many champions to represent this, represent that. But I think it all comes down to cash. So the more the money involved with it, the more you're going to hear about it, the more people are going to understand it, the more that the boxing public is going to know, because of the factor that these are what we call money makers. Now, because these divisions are taking place or happening or existing, then it comes with a champion and a title or whatever. So I don't have a problem with the title. I just think that we need to quit making all these concessions to super everlasting gum stopper champion or millennial champion or whatever. I mean, a champion inside a champion inside a champion. So with all these titles, you maybe have 1 or 2 under one particular area, and then just make it happen. One thing I do like about the WBO is They're just saying, look, we see something, we think you should fight. I would love to work for them because they came out and said, look, Terrence Crawford, despite yourself, you have no idea what you're doing. So check this out. We need to see a real fight. So you should fight, you should fight Sean Porter. And I'm like, oh yeah, that's what I've been saying. So
yeah,
they at least have the sense to go, we're gonna make this a mandatory. It's something that we need you to do. And truth be told, it's a fight that Crawford actually, it helped him in the long run because people gave him legitimate props on it.
Right.
Something he didn't even want to do. He was chasing the wrong man. So I think to answer your question, I think the titles and the champions, being champions is a good look because it lets you know who people are and something to strive for. But I think the way that you do it needs to be done differently. Like you mentioned before, if you don't have a tournament, then you need to have it where these guys below are mixing it up. So that's what we said before. So if that's 7 versus 13 or however the hell you want to do it, 8 versus 9, so they can try to move up so people can really see what's going on. Then you can get that respect because as you guys keep talking about all the time, mentioned about the lower weights with, cats like the Monster, right? And unless you see somebody really, they're talking about how great, you're talking about people how great he is, but if we don't think he's being challenged, we're only going to hear his name but so much until he moves up.
Well, and we're looking at things like, in my mind, I'm looking at the All-American Football Conference, which it forced its way into the NFL. Then the AFL forced its way into the NFL. And the ABA forced its way kind of into the NBA. But since then, it really hasn't worked that way. You like the USFL? No, that didn't work. What was it that we had? We had the Global Basketball League, and what was it, the women's league, the two competing women's league at one time, Charles?
Yeah. ABA.
And then they kind of one forced the other one out. Okay.
Yeah.
Other than that, if you're not part of the norm, you're an upstart, and the upstart very rarely gets in there. So it's a money thing. The thing with these 4 entities and other satellite ones is they're all controlling the whole sport of boxing as opposed to a commissioner-led league or whatever that controls the sport. Okay, we've got UFC, we've got Bellator, but it's really running through Dana White. And the other ones are sitting there hoping that something works. That's it. Horse racing, okay, maybe the Triple Crowns are being whatever, and boxing, that's about it. And I don't get it. NASCAR has NASCAR, and it's got NASCAR Junior, and World of Outlaws it's a separate entity of what they do. But here we have these 4 bodies that somehow, other than agreeing on the rules, can't agree on anything else. And again, this is my rant just about every week, and I'm sorry about it, but it would seem to me that if they should have the vision to say, we ain't doing this right. We're losing an audience that we should be able. Okay, John, I'm going to ask this. You are a boxing guy. You know boxing. At this point, take yourself out of your head and look at it objectively from a normal person's point of view. Which is more popular right now, boxing or MMA?
I think boxing is, but I don't know if I can take myself out of it because I don't like MMA. So I think they both have moments where they do really well, but I think boxing is more popular. They have more events. Most of the MMA, I think, is pay-per-view, right? So
right.
Do well in their own little thing, but the Paul guy, whatever, fighting the MMA guy, whatever, Tyrone Woodley, right? Okay, crossover, whatever you want to call that. Hard for me to take because I don't really like it, MMA. Right. So and that's fine. Everybody can watch whatever they want. I don't care. Someone else would probably tell me MMA, UFC is more popular. I doubt that. Boxing has such a history that the MMA can't even come close to. I mean, who can you name in the UFC or MMA like you can? You can name a few guys, but who can you rattle off compared to the names that we rattle off here on this show every week? So there's that. Now, it's a legacy. A lot of people don't care about that. They just want to be entertained, and then they watch that. But again, repeating myself, boxing has done that to themselves. I mean, those belts that we're talking about, I know that the WBC will make you, if you own one of their belts and won it, Pay them $5,000 before you fight.
Right.
Now, and then Canelo said, take your
feed, yeah.
And they went, whoa. So boxing again, and I'm just going to repeat myself. Boxing has done a lot of this to itself, and it's a sport that's been around forever and will keep being around, but they will not address what you're talking about, Frank, because I think everybody's in their own little lane, and nothing's gotten to the point where it's so bad that they're going to go, oh, we better meet up like the mob, someplace in Atlantic City and figure this out, hug and kiss and say, okay, you got this, but we're going to work together. Nope. Until it gets to that point where you can point at the numbers and go, yeah, UFC and MMA are definitely raking in more money, then it's going to stay like it is, Frank.
Well, if the host had done some homework and thought of this ahead of time, maybe he'd actually have some figures, but he doesn't. So now, Charles, we were talking about something off the air about someone that's looking at talking about some wrestling. And I'll tell you this. Oh, I've been a wrestling fan since I was a kid, and I go back to John Cena. and is this where we're at right now with the boxing versus MMA? MMA is new and fresh compared to boxing. We go back to the gentleman Jim Corbett and all that if we're going to talk about boxing. MMA is kind of new. But if you are under the age of 30 or 35, maybe that's all you've known. So again, you have all these different belts with all these people you can't figure out. And MMA, UFC just trots this guy. This is UFC 195. Boom, boom, boom. Here's what it is. Well, I've seen the last 85 of them. I want to see this. Is that part of it, you think? Or is that something that is a possibility to look at it that it's different? The younger people, the younger generation is thinking, these old farts in there, just two hands. These guys get down on the ground and grapple and all this stuff too. Is that something that does that affect things, you think, or?
No, I think it does. I mean, I think that MMA, and I watch both of them. I love boxing, but I also watch MMA, and I didn't like it at first, but then I started watching it and I started to see what it really takes to be a strong MMA fighter, right? UFC. And then I started to say, well, once I understood it, I was like, okay, yeah, boxing is still number one for me, but I'm older, and I understand that. But I do think it has a lot to do with generations. I do think so. I do think that the younger generation is really up on UFC, MMA, because it's like straight hand to hand. You can see somebody get clocked real quick and it's done and it's over.
Right.
A lot of action, blood and stuff like that too. And Dana White, I will say this, has worked his tail off to get it to where it is. And he knows that, the other thing too, boxing tries to be nice when they were trying to show you some free stuff, but MMA was like, yo, this is pay-per-view, bro. Right. So you want to see it. You go pay-per-view one way or the other, bootleg cable, whatever you do. We're going to make money off of this. And that's why they had it's over the top. And I think that's what the younger people like, because it's kind of instantaneous. It's right now. And it's those kind of shows. Boxing, on the other hand, is history behind it, John mentioned. I will say this. I think MMA for the younger people is more popular right now. But the true boxing fans and people that really like to see good fights still will come out for real boxing. You get a good match. Like we seen Tyson Fury, when he fought Deontay Wilder, the last fight. People were like glued into it, like, yeah, because they know this is a good fight. And the other people was kind of like watching NCAA basketball. Oh, everybody watching it? I'm going to watch it too. Everybody jumps on the bandwagon. So I think that's what's keeping boxing, as you mentioned, instead of it being dead, that's what keeping boxing alive, because we have more than legitimate talents in different weight classes that are coming in and showing you that they can be dominant or they can be some of the top guys. Because for all the times that they talked about other things, some of the past champions have shown you that if you do it right and you come out right and you show that what you're capable of doing, and you can have a nice flashy style or be dominant, people will watch you. They will come. They will support you. Now, collectively, that's not boxing. We have a few guys here and there. You go, damn, I got to see him fight. Even when Tyson was coming out, damn, I got to see him fight.
Right.
So collectively, the sport is not there. Boxing is not, but it still has enough entertainment value for those that know, for the true boxing fans and even the casual fans to go, yeah, they said that guy's good or that lady's good. I need to watch it. But overall, I still think MMA is more amongst the young people. And those are the people that's spending the money. Old forts like us, man, we sitting back around, we ain't spending no money.
Right. We're looking for something for free, right?
And that's where it comes down to it. Dana White knows where's the bread is buttered. So that's where he spend the money. He look at us like, well, that John guy, he don't want to watch me. That's fine, whatever, I don't care. Look, how much money you gonna spend on my stuff anyway? So, but that's how it's made. I mean, you think from the standpoint of from products and everything. That's why they have all these astronomical prices for things, cars and phones and stuff. For somebody older, like, man, I ain't paying much. Hell, I'm trying to get a chill guy trying to get an Obama phone. So it really depends on the generation.
Well, and I think you mentioned the perfect thing. Dana White said, if you're going to pay for UFC 27, you're going to pay for UFC 227.
Yeah.
You know, and that's part of your monthly budget or whatever. UFC fight come on, click, that's what you do. So I understand the genius of that. I can't figure out for the life of me why we can't get these four parties together and say, you guys are hemorrhaging, or maybe they're making money, they don't care. I don't know.
Let me ask you a question though. Let me ask them real quick.
Yeah, sure.
Are they hemorrhaging? See, that's my problem with that. You said they're hemorrhaging, but
I said I would assume that they are, but again, maybe they aren't. I don't know.
Because if you're hemorrhaging, and John, I mean, I'm gonna jump in front, but that hit me right there. When you say hemorrhaging, if they're hemorrhaging, there's no way in hell they're able to get these venues and do what they're doing.
Somebody's making money, right?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So I don't know. When you say hemorrhaging, I don't know. It may not be everybody. Some people getting rich, but there's enough talent, there's enough quality boxing out there. Somebody is making some damn money. So I think if you're not making money, I mean, you say guys like Don King ain't been around in 100 years. They kind of fell off. But the rest of the world and the rest of these organizations, when they have these quality fighters, we seeing Terrence Crawford right now was with a guy that with the Bob Arum in Top Rank, that he's supposed to be one of the top fighters in the world, but they used him for their own, profit, even though he said he didn't make a lot of money, and Bob Arum said whatever, but everybody wanted to see this guy. So my question is, are they actually him?
Okay, John, I'm going to put it to you this way. I'm going to redirect Charles's question. Kind of the same thing. Everything is tiered. We know Jerry Jones is making money, but the backup punter, place kicker probably isn't making. He's making more money than the guy working at Walmart. But okay. So what's the tier here? Is it goes promoter? Well, does it go, Showtime and then those people first, then the promoter, then the trainer, then the boxer, then whatever? And is it, if you're fighting for scraps in Scranton, Pennsylvania, you're not making anything. But if you actually make it and you, let's say, are Mikey Garcia, are you doing okay?
Oh, yeah, for sure. If you've got a name, you're doing all right. You're sliced up in about 100 pieces usually, but you're making money. I don't know what the percentage of the promoters is. There's a guy that is written, Adrian Clark, who's written a number of books on the inside dope on promoters and managers and everything. And you had him on to talk to business boxing because he knows the insides, because he was a manager I think he's written 4 or 5 books about it. And he would break it down, because I would be curious to know how much like a guy like Eddie Hearn makes as a promoter for Matchroom. But I know that Terrence Crawford made $8 million for his fight with Shawn Porter, and Shawn made $3 million. So that's a lot of money in my book. Now that doesn't count what goes to this person, this person, this person, this person, this person. But you still come out of there smiling, I would assume.
I'd say 25% of $3 million, sure.
You can make money, but unless you're lucky enough to have a name when you're an amateur and then sign a big contract like Oscar De La Hoya or somebody, you get 40,000. Like Sugar Ray Leonard got 40 grand for his first fight back in the 70s. That was unheard of. And then you got all the talent, but there's a number of guys that got a boatload of talent, but nobody even knows who they are because they didn't go through the amateur ranks. And this ties in. You'll love this, Frank. This segues back to you about the Olympics. That was the way it was in those days. If you did really well in the Olympics, usually you had a big pro contract waiting for you to make it done, right? And that's the way it should be. But see, so everything is skewed and the money is distributed in a certain way. Now, Eddie Hearn and Bob Arum, I heard a rumor that Top Rank isn't doing very well. You're talking about hemorrhaging. Now, they're not hemorrhaging, but they're not doing as well as they should be doing. And he probably blamed Terrence Crawford for that. Everything starts with Terrence, you know?
Right.
Matchroom Boxing and Frank Warren and the guys in England, and they're doing killer business. This guy that promoted the Con Brook fight, some novice, not Eddie Hearn, not Matchroom, not Frank Warren. I mean, that thing sold out in 10 minutes.
Right.
He paid them a lot of money, but he was smiling like crazy after the fight, so I think he did all right. Yeah, they got a percentage of the box office and everything, so I think everybody does pretty well, but when you're talking about back to where you brought it up with the sticks, nobody does very well. The promoters are just really struggling, and the boxers are barely struggling, and you're looking for that big break. It's just like being an actor. You know, you're looking for that role that's going to catapult you up to the big leagues, and if you don't get it, you won't get it. And unfortunately, that happens to quite a bit in boxing.
Well, when we're looking at something like what's coming up, Charles, and this is we're talking Tyson Fury to sign, or however you want to put it. Is this and I hate to bring the whole show about money, but this is a money situation, or is this a boxing situation?
Well, I mean, I think it's more money. I mean, because anytime now that Tyson Fury fights, you want to see him. I mean, he beat the bully. He beat the guy that's supposed to be one of the best knockout artists, and he withstood him 3 times, right? So he legitimately, in my book, earned the right to be considered the top heavyweight champion of the world. So granted, nobody's gonna go, oh man, yeah, that Dylan White, can't wait to see him. I mean, you do, but then it's like, okay, well, I want to see Tyson Fury. I mean, I said that to myself. Right. I don't care where he fights. He can fight at the Bronx gym. I want to see him fight because he's proven to me if he comes in correct and he has the right attitude, he's crafty, my favorite word, one of them, and he's able to come in and he's gonna give you a show. I want to see that dude. First, I thought he was crazy, belligerent, off the top, but now he's proven to me like he's not so bad. He's entertaining. So yeah, I think it's more about the dollars. I mean, we want to say it's about boxing, but it's a combination because now he realized that he is a true entertainment entity. He told you, I moved to Las Vegas because I'm a guy I'm an entertainer now. So hey, rock on with it. He finally realized what he's done, and not only that, last but not least, he backs up what he says. So if he's talking a bunch of stuff, he's winning. So I mean, we remember Ali like that. I'm not gonna compare, never compare that.
Right.
But he's a talker. Floyd was a talker, and other guys were talkers. And when you back it up, you got to go. Yeah, I may not like him all the way around, but I want to see that guy.
Okay, and that's where I think we go to, John. We've been talking about money and matchmaking and all that coming up in the next few months. What is the best boxing match coming up?
Well, for me, it's Oscar Valdez and Shakur Stevenson. That, to me, that's the most interesting. Now, will it not get a lot of attention? Probably not. It'll get some because it's Top Rank, and they'll do their part to get it out there. I'll probably write at least 2 articles about it, but it won't. The Ring will cover it. But as for the average person, they'll say who. They will probably notice like Tyson Fury fighting Gillian White. That will get more notice because again, it's a heavyweights. But the best fight, and then of course we've got Amanda Serrano and Katie Taylor. That's the fight of the century for the women. Right. That's cool too. And then don't forget we've got Errol Spence and Ugas coming up in April, also April 16th, I believe. So there's a lot of good fights. That one will probably get noticed. But the best fight, as far as I'm concerned, the most interesting is Shakur Stevenson and Oscar Valdez because I like watching Shakur Stevenson develop. I want to see how good he can get. He's already good when he started, and he just keeps getting better. That, to me, that's like watching somebody's talent unfolding right in front of you, you know. So there's that. But April is a big month for boxing as far as boxing matches. And one thing about Dillian White, he's very perplexing to me because, you know, he was making a big point about, I'm the number 1 contender. I should get a title fight. He was right. He was right. and he got knocked out by Povetkin, but then knocked him out in return. Okay, so he's back up there. And then when he gets offered to him, he hems and haws about it. And that's the difference, I think. And I'm not throwing this generation under the train, but it seems like we said, if you win, you got everything. Then you're the guy that can say, I want 80-20. But it's like, well, I mean, if I'm Tyson Fury, I'm going, the fact that he won't sign, he's already got doubts. He's thinking, I can't win. So I want to get as most money as I can think. I mean, I got him beat already. So I just didn't get it. I didn't get what Dillian White's a pretty smart guy. He's a pretty crafty guy, Frank. I heard him talk. But I was really surprised by his inaction, and he signs right. He had like till midnight. He signed at like 11:58. You know, what is it all about? I mean, this is your profession, man. You know, this is your goal to be heavyweight champion. You would think that, and this is probably naive, and I'll admit it. You would think that if you were offered that, you go, "Where's the paper?" Well, you know,
right.
15 million, and you're going to get 2 million. I don't care. Where do I sign? Because I'm going to beat his ass. So it's like, well, I don't like that. He's getting all the money. He's like, well, he has been the champion for a while. That's not the same. I'm the number one champion. Well, you did get knocked out last year. That doesn't matter. He beat Deontay Wilder twice. You know, I mean, it's like it's all BS. So I'm a little disappointed in Dillian, but should be a good fight.
Well, to run the risk of throwing Dillian White under, I was going to say the Conestoga wagon, it's just to get ourselves a little bit. But Charles, now, again, I don't do this, but I'm going to ask you the same question. I'm pretty sure you had the same answer, but why?
Well, I mean, I like Shakur Stevenson, definitely. I like seeing grow, as John said, but I want to see that fight, but the fight I want to see, really, I think the one is going to be interesting because other people have doubts, and I'm wondering what's going to happen, is Errol Spence Jr. and Ugas. You know, your Danish Ugas. Because Spencer's been through hell in a handbasket in regards to car wrecks, train, plane, whatever the hell is going on. Then he has a detached retina. And there's so many ifs, so many questions about whether or not he's going to be in shape. Can he take a punch? Is he the same guy he was? All of that. And then, you know, a lot of people have said they're giving Ugas his props. And you can't take it away from him. He beat Pacquiao, you know, after Spence could not, you know, answer the call. And this fight, because of the factor that the result means so much to a lot of people. I mean, Terrence Crawford is licking his chops, hoping if he can get a shot at whoever it is that wins,
right?
Like, yeah. So, and if he does, he might have to move up to time about going to 154. But the winner, it opens the door for so many different people, right? So I think that's what's intriguing about it. So the question is Ugas as good as everybody thinks? I want to see that. I mean, you say, okay, I mean, I think he has more than a legitimate chance, but I like Errol Spence Jr. He answers the call. That's why I'm really intrigued by this. Every time I watch Errol Spence, you may not be perfect, but he answers the call. And until he stopped answering the call, it's kind of like Floyd. Tell people all the time. That's why I like Floyd Mayweather Jr. back in the day when he was boxing. He answered the call. You may not like it, but he found a way to make great fighters look ordinary. And when the guy is not afraid to fight whoever, he answers the call. And I think that's where a guy like Terrence Crawford is struggling, because you say you're the best, but you got caught up in some junk, and now the so-called best talent is on the sideline watching. And that tells you that you're not making smart business decisions. So I'm questioning, do I really want to watch you now? Well, anyway, that's my soliloquy.
I'm gonna shut up. I'm not gonna go there. I had a whole thing, and nope. It was either Richard III, but anyhow. All right. So the idea of what we're looking at here in the next few months, we're building up for some stuff. We're building up for the May fight that we always have. That first week in May, Cinco de Mayo and all that. What do we have, or what do you think we're going to get, Charles? Because right now, I don't know that we have anything in stone, and I could be wrong about that. But what do you think we're going to get? And we know whose weekend it's going to be, or should be.
Well, we know Canelo's fighting on that weekend because he's taking it over since Floyd has moved on. He had two opportunities. One, PBC came at him with the opportunity to fight, was it Jamal Charlo? Jamal Charlo, and then he was going to fight that up with Benavidez, which I thought would have been very interesting.
I thought that was a smart move, right?
That's like $100 million fight, 2 fights. But then when you flip around with Eddie Hearn and those folks came up with something else where they came up, was it Bivol? Is that right?
Yeah.
Bivol, right.
Bivol had an opportunity to come back and fight the second time with Triple G. So yeah, so they more or less
right.
Yeah. I mean, if
the next fight would be Triple G.
Yeah.
But with all that being said, now it's to the point where I don't think Canelo wants to have anything to do with. I don't think he respects the second fight, with Benavidez. He doesn't like that at all. But then BBC was like, "Look, you can just have the Charlo fight. We'll just have one fight thing, and you can do whatever you want to after that." But now the problem of it is, it appears as if Triple G is not really. There's something's going on. It may be the money, it may be the way he feels disrespected. So he's not on board as everybody thought he would be. So now instead of Canelo just going, all right, I'm good, I'm signing it, I'm done. Who would think out of all the people that would be, Gennady Golovkin that would throw a monkey wrench in this situation.
Revenge.
Yeah, because he wants this fight. He's been wanting this fight. But now he goes, wait, hold up. Shit, wait a minute. I don't know. Let me look at this. And if I do fight you, I want this, I want that. So it's not as clean cut as it was. So with all that being said, Canelo Alvarez is at a crossroads, and he has to make some decisions. And he's also going to have to probably make some concessions to somebody for them to say, Triple G, in fact, yeah, I'll fight you, but I want this.
Right. Now, John, I'm trying to get this thing in my head. Wasn't there something, a rumor of Andre fighting somebody in the upcoming weeks or something, or did I read that wrong? Yeah,
Andre and Benavidez were talking about fighting.
Right.
And Benavidez said, yeah, I'll fight him. And then Benavidez' manager said, nah, he doesn't bring any notice. And I'm like, oh, fine.
So you were kind of in line to fight Canelo, but now you're not going to fight. It doesn't seem to make any sense.
Right, and that's the oldest line in the book. You've heard every fighter use it, and I think it's their manager goes, say he doesn't, people don't know him. And then everyone goes, okay. And it goes back 100 years. I've said that before on the show, said this before. So I thought, wow, that would be an interesting fight. Demetrius is getting ripped by Canelo. Get out of here, F you. He can really prove he beats Benavidez. He could shut up everybody. Nope. Doesn't happen. So Andres ended up fighting some guy named Zakaria Zudaduni or something. I can't even say his name. And I mean, Demetrius Andrade is trying. He's trying to get in there with the top guys. And what does that say? And Canelo's got all the control, and I got to say something about Golovkin. See, Golovkin, I kind of like it. He's not. I don't think of him as like Dillian White that he's going no, because this is a guy that deserves the respect. This is a former champion. This is a guy that allegedly lost to Canelo. Okay, he's lost one fight in his whole career. He's pushing 40 years old. He should balk if Canelo's got all these. This and this and this and this and this and this. Yeah, he has every right. Even though we all know that he's been waiting for this. He doesn't even fight anymore. I mean, he was going to fight in December, but that didn't happen. You don't even hear if he's going to fight the guy again. So I think he sees this as his cash out. This is his biggest. He's done after this fight. I think that's what he's thinking. I'd be wrong, but can't go on forever. 40 years old. So it's funny in a way, and he doesn't like Canelo anymore. Canelo don't like him.
Right.
In negotiations, but I think eventually Golovkin will probably sign for that because he knows, again, if you're talking about money, and this is obviously the key to this show, it's the theme, money. He knows he's never going to make as much money by fighting anybody else other than Canelo. He's no dummy. So, but the guy left out is Charlo again, and that's the fight we all want to. We would want to see it, and Canelo could lose to Charlo. He could lose to Benavidez. That's what makes it really intriguing. He's not the greatest fighter in the world. Even the greatest lost. So those are the fights we want to see. I don't want to see him fight Dimitri Bivol. I mean, it's kind of intriguing because he's light heavyweight, but Fight Bidabiev if you want to fight a light heavyweight. Fight the best division. Don't fight the guy who's second or third. Don't fight Joe Smith. We know you'll beat Joe Smith. Fight the top guy, not the second or third guy, if you're the top guy. So it's frustrating. And I've been waiting, too, with bated breath on Cinco de Mayo because, for obvious reasons, we've been talking about Cinco de Mayo. So I don't know. I mean, 1 week you hear this, 1 week you hear this. I mean, they better hurry because, they train for 8 weeks, so it's coming up, right? I mean, it's the end. It's almost the middle. Now it's like, okay, I won't expose the date on when we're recording this, Frank, but we'll say it's somewhere in February. They got to get going here on this and sign this up, and so everybody can get in the camp. I'm real quick. I'm sure they're training, but they're not seriously training yet until they get a real date. Canelo's been out on the golf course a lot and playing pretty well, actually.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, and this is the problem that we have. And I hate to, again, it all goes back to the money and let's just get it started. You people get this thing taken care of. Charles, simple solution for all of boxing right now.
Well, I mean, the simple solution is if the top fighters want the prestige, they want the belts, they want the money, they want the accolades, then you just have to do what you got to do. Sometimes you just got to go directly to the guy and call him out and tell him this is what you want to do. People say what you want to, but there was not understanding. No promoter made a decision to say Manny Pacquiao is going to fight Floyd Mayweather Jr. They made that happen.
Right,
and
right.
If you're a true fighter, that's what you want to do. You're going to make that happen. So if you're sitting back waiting for your people to do it, then it's something else. But if you have control, that's part of being a superstar. Becoming a major superstar. You can call your own shots. Now your people can kind of guide you and tell you whatever. Think you should do this, that, and that. But you go, you know what? I'm so tired of him running his mouth. You don't think I'm good enough, blah, blah, blah. I'm going to show y'all I'm the real, I'm the real deal. So I think that's what it has to do. It now has to fall upon some of it upon the fighters with the right people behind them, directing their career, going, you know what? I'm a controller my own destiny. I'm tired of you telling me this, that, and that. You say I'm not pound for pound. That's in the way you look at it, that's what Tyson Fury did. I mean, you think about it. People go, oh, Tyson Fury was, we knew about him, but like, how really good is he? And everybody was talking about, well, you kind of be the old Klitschko. He said, all right, so here's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna take this, and even the fight that as he fought Deontay Wilder the first time, his good friend, he changed trainers.
Right.
Because he look, that wasn't good enough. I need to go ahead and I want to put this dude down.
I want to excel, right?
I don't want to be running and getting away from him whenever. I need to change this. Well, I need to make up the ante to show people that I really am as good as I say I am. So he changed his trainers. The trainer with Sugar Hill is more aggressive and realizes that, okay, we need a little bit more weight so we can take a few more hits, but we can also deliver more punishment. So when you take advantage of the situation, those are changes that you have to make as a boxer or whatever. But also what has it done for him? He's the king. He's on the top.
He's the man, right? Yeah.
He's the top on the heavyweight division. So it's on the boxers, it's on the guys that once you make it, Canelo, perfect example too. He when you sit on top, you call the shots, man. So I think you're gonna see more boxers like that. Everybody getting their own management teams, but sometimes you just got to get in the damn ring and fight somebody that's worthwhile. And the prestige, the honor, the money, all of the hype will come, particularly if you willing to risk putting it on the line and making it happen. So yeah, it's on the boxers.
All right, Don. So give us something good to go out on. Give us a high note. Oh.
High note? Well, if you're a boxing fan, we've got there's a lot of activity going. You might not have heard of a number of guys, but the fights have all been pretty much most of them pretty good competitive fights. Josh Warrington back in the ring here, as we said, in March, and that next week, Jose Ramirez, who Josh Taylor beat last time, is back in Fresno, and Gabriel Flores, if you're interested in that, he got beat up badly in his last fight. He's back. So if you like the drama stories about guys making comebacks, you've got that. And then, of course, it would be good, the guys that we can't pronounce their names, that we support them. But I mean, I understand that just doesn't happen. But what's good is we always want good fights in boxing.
Right.
And as Charles said, it's up to the fighters, and it is, but sometimes the fighters outsmart themselves, I think, and think, nah, I'm not going to do that now. And then it's gone by the time it comes around. But we've got some really compelling fights coming up in April. Like Charles said, Errol Spence and Ugas is a really intriguing fight. And then Serrano and Taylor, the fight of the century for the women. Tyson Fury, Dillian White, Valdez and Shakur Stevenson. I mean, that's really something to look forward to as a boxing fan. And in 1 month, it's happening. I mean, in April, in one entire month, bam.
Right.
I told my lady, and she goes, every weekend? And I'm like, I'm amazing. I didn't get hit with a right hand after that. So it's April's going to be a lot. It's at a March Madness. We got April craziness for boxing.
Well, you mentioned something about the guys whose names we can't pronounce, and we should be able to support them. I look at it this way: if you want to support, say, Division II football, that's great in theory. When are you going to see it? It's hard to support something you can't see. Long story short, I used to be on the campus of Tiffin/Heidelberg during their spring games. Decent football. The only time I was seeing it because I was there for another event. Other than that, not going to see it. So they've got to be able to promote this and put it out there, and we'll help. But we can't help what we can't see. So,
good point.
Gentlemen, thanks again. This has been interesting. We won't go on the money aspect as much next time. We'll talk more about what's actually happening in the ring. But, this thing just kind of takes a life of its own, so that's what it is. So there we go. Thank you very much.